This is the Benefits Buzz Podcast, your weekly pulse on what's happening in the world of employee benefits. Brought to you by your friends at WEX, who believe in simplifying benefits for everyone. Now listen up, and let's get buzzed!
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Benefits Buzz, a WEX podcast. We're your hosts, Nathan Coverstone.
And I'm Eric Fiala.
And in this episode, we're going to discuss key strategies for offering an effective flexible spending account, also known as an FSA. Joining us is Zac Johnson, Regional Sales Director at WEX, who's going to share his insights on maximizing the benefits for your employees. Welcome, Zac.
Hey, thanks, Nathan. Great to be here.
Well, we're excited to have you. As a matter of fact, I'm so excited, I've got a whole litany of things I want to ask you right out the gate. So I'm going to kick us off by asking you, FSAs, what's the primary advantage to an employer? Like, why should they be offering an FSA? How does it really benefit their comprehensive benefit package? Give us the skinny.
Yeah, great question. And really, I'm sure we'll dive into it today, but there's multiple different types of FSA accounts we'll kind of dive into throughout our conversation. But the obvious one is cost savings, Nathan, not only for the employer, but also for employees. Today, that's what employees are looking for, right? To save money. Whether you're highly compensated or on the other end of the spectrum, all of us are looking to save money. These are obviously tax advantaged accounts. So it's a huge advantage for those employees, the participants, but also from the employer. I think that's sometimes a misconception that we can dive into as well, is that employers, when your employees are contributing to accounts like this, you're saving FICA tax savings as well. So not only is it a great benefit offering, a competitive benefit offering, I would imagine if you didn't offer it, when employees came over from other companies, they might ask, hey, I had an FSA at my last job. Why don't I get one here? Because it helped me save on eligible expenses. So great benefit offering, saves money, easy to use, could easily be top three reasons of the power of the FSA.
I certainly know that I would ask that question, so I appreciate you calling that. And I am very excited to dive into the varieties and really where the benefits are to the employees as well as the employer. But I don't want to get myself too far ahead of the rabbit, but I won't want to get myself too far ahead of the carriage. So I don't know, Eric, what are your thoughts already?
Well, what I love about this, and one of the reasons we knew you had to have you on, Zac, is because you get to talk to HR professionals all the time. And you hear, right, not only what are the advantages, but I got to imagine this next question I'm going to throw at you goes hand in hand with that is, what are some of the considerations that employers should make? So they're asking you questions, Zac, should I have an FSA? Why should I have an FSA? Is this right for my company, right? Those are all the questions you get peppered with every day. So I'd love for you to answer that question for all of our listeners, right? What are the factors I should consider? How do I know if this aligns with what my goals are as an HR department or as an organization as a whole?
Yeah. I mean, the simple answer is yes, Eric. Like, should I offer an FSA?
Fair enough.
Yes. Let's say it together. Yes, you should. I mean, if you offer a group health plan, yes, you should. And we'll get into the different types, but I mean, there's, full medical FSAs, there's limited FSAs, there's dependent care accounts. Should you offer these accounts? Yes. Do you want to offer a competitive benefits package? Yes. And then you get into some of the more specifics, like what do our medical plans look like? Do we also offer an HSA? Those types of complexities, yes, can go into what does the overall plan design look like? But do you offer a group health plan? Do you want to offer a competitive benefits package? Do you want to help your employees save money on eligible medical expenses that they're already utilizing today? Do you want to save money as the employer? All these are obvious yeses, Eric. So I mean, without a doubt, should you offer these? Yes. And then we can dive into, as we go here, some of those complexities. If I'm going to say yes, what does that look like? What does the plan design look like based on our medical plan offering and things like that? Or maybe it's highly compensated individuals versus not, making sure we're passing all the compliance things. But absolutely, you should be offering it. And then we can dive into some of those complexities.
It seems like in the complexities is really where all of the options come up with regard to employers. And I think a lot of people have probably heard of a medical FSA, kind of the use it or lose it. You can pay for medical expenses. But you kind of touched on some of the other types of FSAs that are out there, Zac. Could you talk a little bit more about those other options and why they might be the better option for an employer to offer?
Yeah, absolutely, Nathan. And obviously, again, yeah, medical FSA, most people understand what that is. As a participant, as an employer, you're selecting, as an employee, you're selecting a certain dollar amount that you want to contribute to the FSA at the beginning of the plan year. It gets front loaded onto a, maybe a debit card or some type of plan administrator's account, and you get to utilize those funds on eligible medical expenses. That's a, medical FSA. I would assume most people generally understand what that's about. But again, there's all these different acronyms. Before I started working in this space, I couldn't have told you the difference between an HSA or an FSA. There's HRAs, there's limited FSAs, there's LSAs. What are all these different accounts? We all live and work and breathe in HR. But what about this regular employee who I was, 7 or 8 years ago before I jumped into this space? So you think the medical FSA. That's kind of what people think about when they think of FSAs. We also have limited FSAs, which I think are growing in popularity. A limited FSA would be paired with an HSA. So if you're enrolled in an HSA plan, a health savings account, you cannot enroll in the FSA as well or contribute to. So you need to contribute or enroll in the limited FSA. Now, this is only for dental and vision expenses, not full medical expenses, because that's what the HSA covers. But it's a really impactful account. I think of people, especially as education improves and investment options improve in HSAs, a really cool opportunity is to protect your HSA dollars. We see a lot of people saving those for retirement, not spending them year over year. So enroll in a limited FSA so you can utilize those funds on eligible expenses like your kids' orthodontia expenses, eyeglasses.
Yeah, I'd much rather pay for these with an FSA than use my HSA. Like to your point, that HSA has an eye on retirement. So love that.
Exactly.
So then what's the difference between, and I apologize, I guess I am one of those people that doesn't know this stuff, but what's the difference between a limited FSA and a combination FSA?
Yeah, great question. Combination now, I'd say these are pretty rare, Nathan. The combination FSA, we do see them once in a while in the market. It's actually a better account, but can get confusing for individual participants. A combination FSA would turn a limited FSA that only pays for dental and vision expenses. When you hit your statutory deductible, it turns it into a full medical FSA. So pretty unique, a little complicated. As you think of employees barely understanding all these acronyms we're talking about anyways, it gets a little complicated, but it's a great benefit.
So it's magic is what you're telling me. It's magical magic. FSA.
If you're thinking about protecting your HSA dollars and saving them to retirement, a limited FSA or a combination FSA, beats both of those purposes. And the last one would be the dependent care account. FSA dependent care account, probably the most underutilized tax savings account in our entire industry. This is for eligible daycare expenses, which most people have nowadays, and goes all the way up until kindergarten. So even preschool can be, or summer classes can be fit under a dependent care account. $5,000 max per year. If you have kids, we're all spending way more than that in eligible daycare expenses. So utilizing a dependent care account and offering it and educating employees. If you have employees who have daycare expenses and you don't offer a dependent care account and your employees aren't utilizing it, they're missing out on the true savings, 20, 30, 40%, depending on your tax bracket or where you live. An incredible savings on money you're already spending today. We're not asking you to spend more money. It's money you're already spending.
This next question is from my HR pros who are out there listening, because they know with comes benefits comes great benefits, great responsibility. And of course, I'm just talking about all, the compliance and regulatory landscape that comes with offering, right, benefits, and especially FSAs. And so there's obviously rules and regulations. So if you wouldn't mind, maybe talk through, hit some of the highlights. What should both, I think, the employers and employees, I guess, too, be aware of when it comes to FSAs?
For sure. How to best stay in compliance when you're choosing an FSA. Choose the right vendor would be my first plug. Would just be like, choose a competent FSA dependent care vendor who does this, that has a compliance team that you're confident is keeping your plan in check. With FSAs comes substantiation. If you're not familiar with substantiation, it's the IRS regulations that you need to be able to prove that every debit card swipe or every claim that money's coming out of an FSA, you need to be able to prove that that's an eligible expense. That would be a 213D eligible expense. So just a ton of confidence and trust in whatever vendor you're choosing, because they really have a lot of the control about the compliance of your overall plan. Another key piece of this, Eric, would be non-discrimination testing, specifically for dependent care accounts. For you savvy HR pros out there, that can be the stickler for offering the dependent care account, because you can't favor highly compensated individuals with the dependent care account. So doing testing early and often throughout the year, in case you do need to make some of those adjustments, doing it again at the end of the year. And one small plug, I would say, early in the year or whenever, say you failed non-discrimination testing for dependent care accounts, obviously more highly compensated individuals then are enrolling and utilizing this benefit. My challenge always to employers is don't stop offering this benefit. Don't just take it away from highly compensated individuals. That means we need to educate the other spectrum of individuals within your company. If more people highly compensated are using, these people have daycare expenses too. They're just not utilizing the tax advantage account to save money. These are the people who really need to save the money on dependent care. So you're failing because we need to do a better job educating everybody across the entire spectrum on the power of this benefit.
You know, that really opens up another question for me, because you're right. I really, until you just said that, there's a lot of diverse needs of different employees depending on where they're at in their career, where they're at in the organization. And then you get into the compliance and regulatory oversight. It seems like it gets pretty complicated pretty quickly, and there's a lot of diversity to take into consideration. So when you're thinking through that, what's really some of the best practices when an employer is going out to design their FSA program for the first time?
Yeah, I really like from a plan design perspective, Nathan. Well, one, offering all the accounts that you can, whether it be the FSA, the limited FSA, the dependent care, if you offer an HSA as well, offer all these accounts. And maybe we'll get into some misconceptions later on. But sometimes the misconception is, I don't want to offer all those accounts because it might cost us more money from the employer's perspective.
Sure.
It's not going to cost you more money. More times than not, the FICA tax savings that you're going to see are going to offset any admin fees you might pay a vendor. So get that thought out of your head and let's offer the full spectrum. That allows us to take full advantage as employees. It allows us to take full advantage of the account that fits my lifestyle. I might have kids in daycare, Nathan, you don't. So that impacts me. So it's that. And then from a specific plan design perspective, make it easy to use, take advantage of all the IRS loopholes is probably not the right word, but all the IRS limitations that they have, like the grace period, offering more time to submit expenses at the end of the year for an FSA, like the carryover. I think the carryover this year for 2024 to 2025 is $640. So offer the carryover. The IRS allows it. So as an employer, why wouldn't you allow it? If these are still your employees, let them carry over as much money as possible so they don't lose it, back to the plan. So I think it's just maximizing the flexibility of the plan, Nathan.
This is beautiful. And you went there, Zac. You went there because you said maybe we can talk about misconceptions. So dang it, we're going to talk about misconceptions, because what I know, when you're on these calls with HR pros, you're probably getting pushback. You're probably getting, what about this and what about that? So hit us with this. What are the biggest misconceptions? What are you saying? Nope, you got that wrong. This isn't how it is. Give us your top three or whatever misconceptions that you typically will hear, or objections maybe that you're typically hearing when it comes around providing an FSA for your employee base.
Yeah, great question. Number one, cost. Yeah, that we already discussed. It's not going to cost you anything to offer all these benefits. Forget the people per participant per month number, whatever it is, forget it. You're going to save the money with FICA tax savings and contributions to these accounts. So cost. Another big one would be substantiation. I know we touched on that just quickly. It's IRS regulated. No vendor in our space wants to be the receipt police. They're trying to make it as easy as possible. No vendor in our industry makes money off of checking receipts, but a good vendor in our space is checking receipts and is making sure that your employer-sponsored plan is staying compliant. So with participants, the misconception of, man, that vendor is just trying to check all my receipts and not trying to give me my money. No, we're just trying to keep your plan within compliance for your employer. So that kind of overall misconception. And then just some of the things that people don't understand about FSAs, like the use it or lose it factor. So making sure we're educating people on that, or even the front loaded aspect of it. A lot of times they get HSAs and FSAs confused. HSAs, you only get the money as you actually contribute to their account. FSAs is front loaded on day one of the plan year. So it's those little key pieces of standard kind of built out process of an FSA that get miscommunicated, misconceived at times.
Zac, you've talked about, first of all, I'm loving this as well, Eric. I think we need to have Zac on as a regular. This has been great. But one of the things you talked about, Zac, and it keeps coming up, is education, communication. So it's obvious that those two items, education and communication, are significantly important to the effective use of these benefits. So what resources do employers actually have, or what can they provide to really help their employees with that, since it can become a little bit complicated for the end user to really understand?
No doubt, Nathan. And it's probably the area where, I don't know if our industry has failed the most, or even just like HR in general, or just the place where we fall short the most is that education and engagement. And Nathan, we also understand as a whole that HR teams are running leaner than ever before. Their HR team members are newer to the role than ever before. So how can we take some of that off their plate in our industry? How can you make sure you find a vendor that will engage with your employees? Make sure you find a vendor that provides great education. So when I think of education, I'm thinking of webinars, whether it's live or recorded, one-page handouts, short videos, email campaigns, snail mail. It's education within the mobile app. When you log in, it might do a pop-up education. There's so many different ways where we can educate employees on the behalf of employers. They don't have to get engaged. And then it's some of those tools and resources, like say an FSA calculator, help me determine how much I should contribute to my SSA year in and year out. Or maybe it's an eligible expense list. One cool thing I've seen in the market is an eligible expense scanner within the mobile app. So I'm at Target or Walgreens. I can't remember if Band-Aids are an FSA eligible expense or not. I can scan the barcode. They are eligible, by the way, but I can scan the barcode and it's going to tell me, use your FSA card. Awesome. That's active education for an FSA.
I love that. Zac, as you were talking, you talked about the mobile app and the ability to potentially scan an eligible expense. You also talked about online accounts and FSA calculators, and all of those just really scream technology to me. So what are the technologies that employers can leverage to really get the most out of their FSA, to really focus on enhancing that employee experience?
Yeah, specifically employee experience, I think of two key things. One is a debit card and one's a mobile app. Pretty common in our industry, but just make sure that you're offering that to your employees. The second factor to both of those is consolidation. I truly believe in the power of consolidation, not only administratively, but for your employees. Imagine a participant experience where they have an HSA, a limited FSA, a dependent care account. Maybe they have commuter accounts. We're talking about commuter today, but imagine they have all those pre-tax spending accounts on one single stackable debit card, one mobile app experience with all their accounts in one place. I mean, I always like talking through this example. I'm going to the doctor today. I take out my WEX debit card, I swipe it, and I pay my deductible. Automatically pulls out of my HSA account because it knows by the MCC code it pulls from there. Right after the doctor, I go to my eye doctor and I buy a new pair of glasses. I take out that same debit card for whatever administrator I use, swipe it again, and it pulls from that limited FSA because it knows which account to pull from. It's an eligible expense for the limited FSA because it's a vision expense. I could use that same debit card and swipe it up to daycare to pay for dependent care expenses. I'd use that same debit card on the train ride home and pull from my commuter account. It's that overall participant experience powered by consolidation through technology. I think that creates the best participant experience. And then administratively, obviously, it's kind of just the inverse of that. When you're administering these accounts, having one vendor to go to with questions, maybe it's one set of file feeds, maybe it's one account manager, whatever that looks like with your plan administrator, having consolidation of these benefits, I think, is truly impactful.
Yeah, well, that's perfect lead into my next question. I'm going to ask you to do the impossible, Zac. I'm going to ask you to be as as unbiased as you possibly can. But
You can do it.
you can do it. I know you can. But when employers, they're looking for options, right, for
Sure.
help administering their FSA program, how do they choose, right? Who's the most suitable provider, and what are those options?
Great question. Two parts that I think of. Administratively, how do I choose to make sure that this doesn't land on my plate as the HR pro? Make sure that the vendors you're choosing integrate well with your Ben admin or payroll system. That takes the work off of your plate. Typically, a vendor in our space needs a demographic file, an enrollment file, a contribution file. So administratively, make sure it's easy for you. Also, administratively, make sure that the administrator you're going to pick will take engagement and education off of your plate, that they offer webinars, that they have one-page handouts, short videos, that they're going to educate your employees on your behalf throughout the plan year. Super important. And then from a participant perspective, how do you make that decision? A lot of the things we touched on already. Make sure they offer a debit card. Make sure they have a consolidated mobile app. Make sure there's a website. What's the service look like? When my employees have questions, who are they calling? Are they calling me, the HR administrator, with their FSA questions? Or are they calling the FSA administrator?
Right.
So those key concepts that make it easier for you and a better experience for your employees.
Zach, early on in my career, I'm going to switch gears a little bit here. I heard somebody tell me that you can't high jump without a bar. And so I think all of us kind of have a responsibility to measure success. And I think that also applies probably to employers as they're kind of working through their own FSA programs. So how would they do that successfully? What metrics should they really be taking a deep focus on to know that the program they've built is working for them and is working for their employees?
Yeah, the key things that stick out to me, and again, whatever vendor you choose should be able to provide some level of analytics and reporting. So some of those metrics that I like to look at from a data perspective, like what the participation look like. Is participation going up or is it going down? Because that's not only going to affect our overall benefit offering, like are our employees seeing a true value in these benefits, but also affecting the FICA tax savings for you as the employer and for the employee and the participant. So overall participation, are we having more people enroll or less people enroll? Are contributions going up or down? Are people enrolling more and giving, putting more into these accounts because they're seeing the value, or are they pulling back? That could be some key indicators. And then from a service perspective, are our employees happy? When they call our FSA administrator, do they get quick answers to the questions that they need? So some of those are maybe a little more hard to kind of pinpoint from a data perspective, but making sure our employees and me as the administrator is getting good service.
Yeah, solid advice. I'm not going to lie. As I was preparing for this, I'm like, I don't think about FSAs all that often. Honestly, I just don't. And I'm in this business, right? But Zac, you are an FSA nerd and you're proud of it. And I love that. And that's why you're on this podcast. So I'm going to take full advantage of it. And everyone listening to this podcast is going to take full advantage of it. And so what I want to know is, where is this industry going? What does FSA look, the world of FSAs, what does it look like? Because there's only a few people that probably know this in our company, and you're one of them. And by God, you're on the podcast. So what do you see, Zac? What's happening? I want to make sure employers are ready for today, but also what are some of the things that are going to impact the workforce in the future, right?
Yep. No, yeah, good question. And I think a key part of that is just, where's the industry going as a whole? Where are medical accounts going as a high deductible, traditional health plans? What does that look like? I would say, as we focus on FSAs today, I would say HSAs are growing in popularity. People continue to see the value of an HSA as a long-term health savings account. So as those continue to get utilized, we believe that limited FSA accounts should increase as well, the participation. I think the education on limited FSA accounts, the knowledge on limited FSA accounts is well behind HSAs. So as HSAs continue to increase, how do we bring limited FSAs with them? Because as people start to understand the concept of protect my HSA dollars, then the limited FSA is the absolute best account you can do that and still maximize your tax savings. So increase in limited FSA accounts, hopefully an increase in dependent care accounts through good education and good engagement. with participants, because it's, again, probably the most underutilized account in our entire suite of products.
Well, Zach, and it's not just for, we forgot to mention this, it's not just for your kids. If you happen to have your parents who need elderly care, that also count as a dependent, right? I mean, there's tons of uses.
Elder care.
Yeah.
Elder care. There's more uses than you could imagine. I mean, I bet there's 50% of employees right now in any given company that have dependent care expenses that do not, I mean, way more than 50%.
Mhm.
It's just the most underutilized account. It's such a bummer, but
Yeah.
I will continue to educate people and shout it from the mountaintop. And then the last piece I would add, what's the future look like? It's just new technology. It's new resources.
Yeah.
How do we make it easier? How do we make it easier to use? How do we make it easier to engage with? How do we make it easier to educate? It's mobile apps, it's smartphones. Recently it's like smart wallets, like put your debit card on your Apple
Nice.
Watch, in your Apple Pay, your Samsung wallet, whatever it might be, have your SSA, HSA card in there and make it easier to utilize. So some of those technology trends for the future.
I have to echo Eric's sentiment that it's been great to have you on the podcast, Zac. You are obviously a consummate professional and your insights are just fantastic. So I want to take this last opportunity to ask you one last question, which is, what tips or advice would you give to an employer who's actively considering offering an FSA at their company?
Should we keep it simple to finish here? And it's just do it, The same answer is yes, yes, do it. And if you're going to do it, educate yourself as an HR professional, because you might not know the power of some of these accounts. I totally get it. Educate your employees well, to make sure that they're making good decisions. Encourage them to participate. It can be very hard to contribute $5,000 to an account in 1 year. That could be a big mind hurdle for someone in a dependent care account to say, I'm going to contribute $5,000 to this account. That feels like a big number, during open enrollment, but it's money you're already spending. It's money you're already utilizing. And now you're going to get a significant savings on the money you're already spending anyway. So it's encouraging them to do it, educating them well, and then providing great resources for them to be able to do that.
And just doing it. I love that, actually.
Do it. Nike, just do it.
Just do it. Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Zac. And thank you all for joining us on today's episode. And please don't forget to subscribe to Benefits Buzz and leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know what topics you're interested in, and that's what we'll provide. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
WEX is in the business of simplifying benefits for everyone. Now, although we certainly hope our podcast sparks some aha moments, like that was pretty cool, but of course we cannot provide legal, investment, or financial advice. And, well, therefore, nothing shared in this podcast should be interpreted as such. We encourage you to seek out appropriate professional advice regarding your plans. Hey, congratulations! You made it through our disclaimer. Thanks for listening.